Hi, David, it's so great to see you. How are
Good.
you?
I'm doing great, Rebecca. Good to see
Well,
you too.
well, now you are. Now you're into the Zoom.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
classic stuff. So we're doing a tech podcast, and the tech didn't work, did it?
Nope, took a little bit.
Oh, well, it's great to see you. And I'm really excited to be talking about cybersecurity with you because it's a really interesting area. And it's so fast moving that every time I talk to somebody about it, it's moved on about another 100 miles from the last time I talked about it. So, I mean, can you give us just a quick overview to start with of what businesses should be really concerned about right now?
Well, I mean, right now is subjective, right? I've been kind of saying it for a little while, and then we've been talking about it for a little while. But the cyber attacks are just like continues to go. It continues to get bigger and worse, and more damaging. And it's really gone. What I'll say is down market. What I mean by that is that it's not just the big banks with all the money that are being attacked, but it's the mom and pop businesses. I mean, I'm literally working with organizations like three-person companies that are being hit with these cyber attacks and losing, what to them is a significant amount of money. And so it really is just sort of it's happening to anybody and everybody.
Oh, that's really scary. She says, quickly writing down on a to-do list. Look at this today. I mean, I have to say that I did think it was big businesses that were getting hit, not smaller businesses. So that is scary. And we hear a lot about the ransomware, which seems to be the real thing at the moment. But what makes it such a problem for businesses, and how's it kind of evolved over the last couple of years?
I mean, the thing with ransomware is it's very dramatic. It's very impactful, right? And that's why they do it. That's why the bad guys do it. You can't ignore it, right? When if a company if a company is shut down, like their email doesn't work, their computers doesn't work, it's pretty much the most important thing going on, and business owners can't ignore it and move on. It's very disruptive. Um, and they're doing it right, and they're doing again. There's smaller organizations are getting hit with ransomware. It's not just big companies. Big companies are still getting hit, but again, smaller ones also now. And it continues to get more pervasive. One of the things that's happening is that we're seeing is that it's also a little faster. What I mean by that is the amount of time from when the bad guys get into the environment before they then launch the ransomware has shortened down. People used to think incorrectly that if somebody clicks on the bad email link and unleashes a malware, that the ransomware is going to hit you right away, and you get encrypted the next day. No, right? It was always the bad guys spend some time in your environment to look at who you are, what you do, what you're worth, how much they can demand of you, and then at some point they started to learn to exfiltrate the data, right? And then they disable the backups and do a lot of things. And they would used to be in the environment for weeks and sometimes months.
Really?
Yes. And that continues to be the case, right? It's not a next day thing. But what we are seeing is that they're spending a little bit less time in there. Instead of months, it's instead of many months, it's now weeks and a few months. And sometimes it's even shorter than that. It's becoming almost a little bit of a smash and grab, right? More like what people used to think. But again, it's not that they're doing less damage; it's that they're doing the damage faster. And the biggest impact, what we saw recently was it's people think ransomware is always about, oh my God, my systems are shut down, I pay the ransom, get things back up and running. Okay, that was part of it. And what they did was they evolved because IT got better and they would have backups. And so you could restore from backups and get back up and running without having to pay a ransom. And so the bad guys got better and they said, okay, if you don't want to pay the ransom to get access to your systems because your IT backups worked, good for you. But guess what? I exfiltrated, all this sensitive client data of yours. Pay me a ransom, or I'm going to publish this on the internet. So the ransom was for what we call suppression.
Mm.
Okay, and that still continues to happen. And when I say things have gotten faster, what I mean is they're in there, they're in your environment, and they're grabbing the data and exfiltrating the data faster than they used to. It used to take them weeks and months. Now they're within days and weeks exfiltrating the data. Sometimes, again, bad guys just They do their thing. Sometimes they do what we call ransom without the where. What I mean by that is they don't even bother encrypting your data these days. Sometimes they just grab data, exfiltrate sensitive data, and say, "Hey, pay me for suppression." Right? They don't even bother encrypting your systems.
It's just as quick as they can. I suppose the smaller the business as well, the quicker they just want to be in and out and scare the hell out of you and
Well,
just waste some money.
y-
Whatever money they can get's worth it. They don't want to spend too much time because it's not worth it, is it?
yeah, well, to some extent, yes, but really, what happens, I think, is they look at what damage they look to see what kind of damage they can do and the amount of effort needed for that. So what I mean by that is a larger organization, for example, that's got better cyber, and maybe they can't launch all that malware because the company has things in place. Well, then what they're going to do is they're going to focus on getting the data out and ransoming you for suppression. Okay. Smaller organizations where they got in really easily and they can move around really easy and do lots of things really easily, yeah, they might give you the whole 9 yards and do you the full encryption and everything, right? It just really depends on, I think, what the organization's security posture is like, and what the bad guys see when they're in there in terms of what they can do for the minimal amount of effort and the biggest bang for the buck, right?
Yeah, it's just so horrible, isn't it? It's the whole idea of somebody spying on you for ages is really uncomfortable. And I know we're absolutely inundated, particularly in the UK, and I'm sure it's the same everywhere else with financial fraud and sort of wire redirection at the moment. We're constantly getting warnings from the bank. The bank's sort of trying to combat it by introducing all sorts of different security measures. So, do you think overall that's more damaging than ransomware? And what do you think about it, and how do these attacks work? Have you got some examples of people who would you'd think were aware of these things and then get called out anyway?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, the wire redirection, the financial fraud is I would say just as damaging. I don't know if it's more or less. It all depends on who, where, and how much you get hit for, right? I've seen people lose millions of dollars to wires, like 9 million, $10 million in a wire, and that's probably worse than ransomware because most ransoms are not that large, right? But it really just depends. And what we're seeing is, it's like they're making quick bucks this way, right? They don't need to write any special software. They don't need to get into your environment and evade a lot of things. They just need to get into, in many cases, they just need to get into your email. That's usually what happens. We call it a business email compromise. And so what the bad guys do, the threat actors, they hack into somebody's email. Usually it's going to be like the CFO or the controller or somebody who's in charge of the money.
Yeah.
And what they try to do is they'll send an email out to their bookkeeper, the person who writes the checks, and they'll say, hey, please send a check for $50,000 to this vendor. And of course, the bookkeeper is like, well, I got an email from the CFO. Why wouldn't I do that? And of course, that it's a fraudulent wire. What they also do is they get into a company's accounts receivable email. So that these are the people who send out invoices to clients.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And what they do is they'll get into that inbox, the inbox that sent the invoices out to the clients, and they'll reply all to that email that had the client in the invoice, and they'll say, "Oh, following up on this invoice, Mr. Client, just wanted to let you know that we've changed our bank account,
Oh
and
yeah.
so, here's the new information of where you should be sending this money instead." And of course, the recipient of that, the client, they're gonna be like, okay, I got a legitimate email from, look, it's the same email with at the invoice attached, right? So yeah, it must be the same person.
Why would you doubt it?
Why
Yeah.
would you doubt it? And so they send the $150,000 for the invoice to the bad guy's bank account. And then the problem with the company is that the company got hacked. Is what are they really going to do? Are you really going to go sue your client and say, yeah, pay me give me that another 150? No, are you gonna
Not do anything
you,
about it apart from report it to the police, can you? And I don't suppose they
yeah.
can really cope with the volume of crimes like this, can they?
That's right. That's right. I mean, and so situations like that, the accounts receivable, it's especially bad, right? Because it's a double whammy in a way. You're showing your client that you have bad security, that you got compromised, and you're losing money that you're not going to go after the client, again to
Yeah.
pay, right? So you're out that. So it really is quite an impact there on that.
Yeah, no, I can really see that. So just out of interest, you said that the ransomware was often a lot less, particularly for small businesses. What on average do people get asked to pay for their data if it was a small business?
Yeah, I mean, look, when I say a lot less, I mean it is all relative, right? I've seen
Yeah, yeah, no, I
ransoms
get
in the
that.
10 million range, but what would I say? I would say, generally speaking, ransom demands are in the, half a million US to 5 million US, and it could be up for some others, but somewhere between the half a million to 5 million is probably about what's going on these days. And really, it's not just how big an organization you are, right? In some cases, it's how much insurance coverage you have. Because when they're rummaging around your environment
Oh, they
for
find
a
your
week,
insurance.
they
Yeah,
find your policy.
yeah, 'cause they can see. Oh, but that's, oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. Anyway, I mean, one of the things that is really worrying me about all this at the moment is AI. And because whenever you've got a new thing come in to a business, you can guarantee that the other side, i.e., the bad guys, will be using it as well. So there must be examples of them using AI in cyber attacks. Well, what's going on with AI with hackers? They
Oh
must
yeah,
be
I mean,
making the most of it, surely.
AI is just, more, better, faster, right? I mean, with AI, it means the bad guys can do more attacks, better attacks, and do them faster. Look, with the wire redirection emails, we used to tell people, or any type of email that's trying to get access, right? The phishing emails, as we call them, that we tell people, don't click on this. Well, what are things we tell them? Look for bad grammar, right? Poor English, because that's not their native language. Look for badly formatted emails. The images aren't right or whatever. And then those are sure signs, or those are big telltale flags that it's a illegitimate email. Well, guess what? With AI, it's perfect English. The
Yes, of
messages are
course.
formatted perfectly. It's all done really good, really well, right? And so you can't rely on those key markers anymore, like we used to tell people. Uh, and again, they're getting better. They're getting faster at what they do. They can do more of them. And then we're also seeing, really creative uses of AI. There's a well-known case where an organization this is again a wire redirect. An organization, they were pretty large. It had some very sophisticated controls, and so one of the controls they had was for wires above a certain amount that you need to not just do the phone call to make sure, right? But they said they wanted video calls. And so you get on a Zoom call with the CFO to verify, make sure not just the voice,
Yeah.
but actually,
I,
see the guys, see the CFO's face. Well, these bad guys used AI to do a deep fake video, and they deep faked the CFO's likeness, and they got a $25 million wire released as a
that is
result.
unbelievable. That is just appalling, isn't it?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's so easy to do. I mean, we managed to do a voice for one of our clients, and we were just experimenting to see if we could do it and actually make it sound like he'd done a voiceover on something. And we all had a good laugh about it. But that is just frightening when they can pretend to be you and get that kind of money using
It, it,
AI.
It is, and the amount of training needed to make that happen. In other words, the samples of the person's voice you're trying to fake, or the samples of the person's video, face, name, likeness, image, and likeness that you need to fake. It's not a lot. And with social media, it's so easy to find,
Yeah,
especially for an
of
executive.
course.
It's so easy to find their voice out there on the internet, or a video clip of them doing something. I mean, look, I'm doing this video with
Yes.
you now. When somebody sees it, they're going to deep fake me like in 5 minutes, right? It's going to be so easy.
And
So it's
let's
a huge
face it,
problem.
they want to do us, David. They want to do us.
It could be a fun one, right?
Now, one of the things I always talk to a lot of the guys from next year about is supply chain vulnerabilities, which affect businesses all, the best of times. It's a real issue. But do you get targeted by these hackers in your supply chain? I mean,
Oh,
you've talked about, you
huge.
just mentioned the invoices then, which made me think about it. And I'm wondering, where can they get into your supply chain to do that same thing?
I mean, in this global economy, the supply chain is everywhere. I don't think people recognize what we really mean by supply chain sometimes. So, to be specific, right, we talk about organizations that you either do business, you're either a client of, or they are your client. If you're in a business, you're part of it. Just by virtue of being in a business, you're
Yeah.
part of it. So your clients, right? They're gonna come after you so that maybe they can get to your clients. So again, the invoice, the AR, okay, depends on whose inbox they break into, but they're gonna get money out of you. And then people that are your vendors, you're a client for, right? Um, we've talked for many years, uh, law firms and accounting firms, Nexia Partners, right?
Yeah.
They are huge targets because think about it. Um, if I get into an accounting firm, think about how many social security numbers I can get access to,
Absolutely.
right? At law firms, if you get into a law firm, especially like a patent law firm, then you get all the people's patents, before the patent applications and all the technology behind it. You get all that information before the patents have been issued, right? So there's a lot of intellectual property you can get there, and it's crazy. Look, I mean, the well-known in the U.S., one of the very well-known hacks that happened years ago was the Target hack, right? And in that situation, uh, the hackers didn't get into Target directly. What they did was they hacked a vendor of Target, the air conditioning company,
Right.
right? It was the air
So
conditioning
random.
company,
Yeah.
random as it may be. Well, that air conditioning company supported Target, and Target has these, online enabled air conditioning systems that they use, right? And the air conditioning company had access to them because they managed the air conditioning. And but the problem was the air conditioning network shared the cash register network, right? The point of sales network where the credit card
Oh,
machines are.
right. Yeah.
And so when the hackers hacked the air conditioning company, and from there were able to get into the air conditioning systems at Target, they then moved laterally from the air conditioning systems to the credit card systems, right? And so that's how that happened. And again, that's like almost 10 years ago now, and I'm seeing it still to this day. What I see, is I had a client who, again, has these big pieces of equipment, that they have a vendor to manage. So again, the similar
Yeah.
concept of the air conditioner, right? They're a manufacturing company, these big pieces of equipment, and they hacked one of the providers who had access into the equipment, and as a result, got into the equipment, and then from there moved laterally to the rest of the environment. Um, I had another client that their IT provider, and again, IT providers are huge targets now because if you
Yeah.
if you hack one IT support provider, you get
Get
all of
into
the
everybody.
administrative credentials for all of their clients, and that's exactly what happened. Is they moved it in some cases it's even worse because not only do they get the username and passwords, the administrative username and passwords, but again, the IT provider has remote access into your systems, and so they can use that remote access to get into your systems also. So supply chain is huge. It's a huge issue, and I don't think people really recognize what's going on. So look, you do cyber, you protect your front door, but what about the side door, the back door, the
Yeah.
one that you let your trusted partners in on? Are you watching those also?
That is so frightening. I mean, it almost sounds like a movie, doesn't it? When you see the bad guy sort of hacking into a building to get somewhere, it really does sound like that. I was just thinking about our systems because we do a lot in the cloud. And so we've got our data held in the cloud in a different system, and we use different platforms for different functionalities. And surely, if we've got all these things sort of split up in different places and held in the cloud, they must be safer, surely, than if we're not having it on our computer.
Yeah, I hear this all the time. Move to the cloud, it's safer. Yeah, not really. I mean, the cloud the cloud is just somewhere else. That's all it really means.
Right.
Okay. So when you take your systems and whatever you have that, the server you have in your office, and you take that and you move it to the cloud, you just moved it to somebody else's server. All right. And okay, yes, you would think that somebody else who is maybe more focused, and spends more time looking at protecting that specific system or application is going to do a better job at it than your person who has 20 other responsibilities in addition to that, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So there is some security to be gained through specialization and expert knowledge there. But the thing is the cloud providers all say, look, we just built you a house. It is your job to decide whether the doors are open, how many doors you have, how many windows you have, and whether you properly lock them or not. That is what the cloud is. Think of it that way. You had you're somebody else is building the house. So yes, they're mowing the yard, they're watering the grass. Okay, they're taking out the trash for you. Okay, sure. But they're not necessarily locking the door for you, right? It is up to you to decide whether you want your windows open for the fresh air or not. And that's really the case. And we see that in a lot of places, in a lot of cloud systems. Microsoft 365 is a great example. I love Microsoft 365, okay?
Right.
But Microsoft makes it very clear. We give it to you with all the doors open, and we leave it to you
Okay.
and your IT people to decide which ones to close. That is essentially what Microsoft has done with Microsoft 365. Lots of great strong locks on those doors. They've put in a lot of really good security systems, but they leave them all unlocked to begin with
Right.
and
That's really
expect you to lock them up.
okay. So if you don't do that, so like me, you download it onto your computer, you buy it for your business. If you have
Yes,
gone into those
yes,
security settings or you
yes,
understand them, because I find some of these things quite hard to understand and what they actually technically mean and where to find
yes,
them within the system. This is the thing. So if I was
yes.
to outsource my IT to one of the support people that you were talking about, how would that be a better protection to get them to set it up for me and do that?
Well, you would think so, but there's a cybersecurity insurance study that was done not that long ago. And it's again done by a cybersecurity insurance carrier. And they actually found that organizations using Microsoft 365 were 3 times more likely to file a cybersecurity claim than organizations
Really?
using other platforms. Okay. Now, again, I like Microsoft 365. It's actually a really good platform, but it's exactly what you just said, Rebecca. Um, you have to make sure that your IT people know how to and are properly securing it. And the problem is Microsoft 365, it looks very similar to the older, Microsoft Exchange and email systems. It's just, in the cloud. So hey, and that's what Microsoft did in the beginning of this. They made the settings and the interface look the same so that administrators were very familiar with it.
Yeah.
And so administrators were like, okay, yeah, this is very similar. I can do this. And then what happened was, as Microsoft built it and improved it more, they give you more security controls and more security settings, and they put them in this other screen, right? And what
Right.
happens is the IT admins, they go to this other screen. They're like, well, I've never seen these before. I don't know what the proper setting is. And IT
Yeah.
administrators, reasonably are very intimidated by it because they're like, well, should I enable this security control and block certain types of things? Well, I don't know exactly what it does, and I don't want to break email. So I'm not going to enable it
Yeah.
because
So
that
you
might
don't want
stop
to
the
break
emails.
it, do you?
Exactly.
It's
And,
like,
so- and
oh,
exactly. And again, these IT administrators, I'm not trying to be, negative on them. They have so many things they do. And Microsoft, this 365 platform has morphed over the years to be a completely different tool. And so most IT
yeah.
administrators haven't had the time and opportunity to really understand what's going on. There's 120 different security settings, and 100 of them are new, right? And so most IT people know maybe 10, 15 of them, but they're not familiar and don't have the experience with the other 100 plus. And so that's where the problem is, and that's what's going on. And that's why a lot of Microsoft 365 systems are getting compromised.
No, I can see that. So is the best thing to actually find an expert in cybersecurity, not an IT support person, not a company that does IT support who may say that they do cybersecurity, because I'm sure a lot of the local firms that I've seen around all say, oh yes, we do cybersecurity. Do we trust that credential, or how do we know?
Well, the first question is a very good point. What credential? Right? What credential are we trusting, right? So unfortunately, and what we see is, look, there's a lot of smart people out there, and there's a lot of people who can do IT things, okay, and they can make things work, and they can set up an email server or things like that. But the thing is it's gotten so complicated. Okay, look, let's take a step back, right? 100 years ago, we had doctors. You're
Yeah.
either a doctor or you weren't.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, fast forward, what kind of doctor are you? Brain surgeon, heart
Yeah.
surgeon, pulmonologist, cardiothoracic, you know, orthopedic. There's like
Yes.
30 different types of doctors,
Specialisms. Yeah.
right? And that's because science has gotten better and we've learned more. And one person can't know everything anymore. You have
Yeah.
your generalist, the doctor you go to for your physical, and that doctor says, okay, your blood pressure is good, your blood sugar is good, your cholesterol is good. Okay, here's, or if they say, oh, look, you have a problem here. You have, I'm hearing something with your heartbeat. It's a little different. You need to go to a specialist, a cardiologist, and they will diagnose this because I don't know, that area. I'm a generalist. Most IT providers are generalists. They're like your general practitioner for your doctor, okay? And cybersecurity is a specialty now, okay? Now, unfortunately, we do have some people out there, some IT people out there who present themselves to be cybersecurity people also. And maybe they're good, but
Hmm.
maybe they aren't. Here's the problem. How does the CFO or the CEO of the company who knows nothing about IT, how do they know if this person is good or not?
No,
And
absolutely.
that is
No
a
way of
huge
telling.
issue.
You've got no way of telling. I mean, I've seen it done with SEO, where people claim they've done SEO web work, and you have a look at the back end, and nothing's been done.
Yes.
So I can imagine it's even worse in this area. So no, I can
Yes.
really believe that. So if our business has been attacked, what is the first thing that we should do? What are the initial steps rather than go and get the gin bottle and hold your head
Yeah,
in your
yeah.
hands?
Yeah. I mean, look, you need to get the specialist, right? And I know a lot of people say, well, this is an IT problem. The IT guys will handle this, right? And people don't realize most IT people spend their entire careers hopefully never having an incident, right? Their job and their hope is to like secure things, right? And so that the
Yeah,
systems don't get hacked. And so most IT people don't have hands-on experience doing what we call incident response or computer or forensic investigations, right? Um, I do this every day. I do 2 or 3 a day sometimes on a crazy day, right? And I have teams of people that's all we do. So again, kind of like firefighting or any other type of analogies I can make. Okay, yeah, we can put out the kitchen fire, so to speak,
yeah,
right? Throw some water on it. Maybe to put a blanket on it on a grease fire instead of using water. Some people don't even know that, right?
yeah,
Okay, you can do that. But when the house is actually like, your wall is on fire, right? You're not gonna put that out yourself. Get the people to come in, call 911 in the US and right, and whatever the emergency number is in your country,
yeah.
right? And get the firefighters to come in that have the specialized training, tools, and expertise that really know how to do this. But unfortunately, we don't see that. I still see a lot of times people have their IT people look into it and they say, oh, well, my IT guy looked at it and he fixed it. Or my IT guy looked at it and he, erased everything and restored my system so I can get back up and running. That's like the worst thing you can do, right? Because when the IT people get in there and they start deleting things and restoring things and overwriting things, now you have no forensic evidence in where you've lost the forensic evidence and you don't understand what actually went on in your environment. Because and that's a problem. Why is that a problem? Because there are laws now that say if a company has a data breach, if a person's private information has been exfiltrated, you need to notify them about
Yeah,
about
of
this.
course. Yes.
And if you lose the forensic evidence, right? Forensics is, I tell people, forensics is not just about like how did they get in, who got in, how they got in. That's usually
It's
what
the
people are thinking about.
evidence, isn't it?
Okay, it's like people think it's who got in and how did they get in. I want to know that so that I don't let people get in like that before. Okay, yeah, that's all part of it. But there's a key piece of forensics now because of these laws, which is what data did they access
Mm.
or what data did they exfiltrate. I call that quantifying the data breach. Right? You need to understand
Yes.
how much data they got and what data they got because that tells you then who you need to notify, right? If you can quantify it, you can notify the right people. So, let's say I have social security numbers for 10,000 people.
Mm.
because as part of my business, or maybe maybe I'm a credit agency, or I process loans, or maybe I'm a real estate company and I do tenants. People apply to live at my apartment complex, right? I might have 100,000 social security numbers because I'm doing credit checks on people. Okay. Well, if I can demonstrate through forensics that they only got onto this one server, or they only got to this one file, and it's these 500 people or 1,000 people that were impacted, and I only notify those
Mm.
500 or 1,000 people, that's pretty good. But if I've lost all my evidence and I can't demonstrate that, next thing you know, I am notifying all 100,000 people, 200,000,
Yeah, it's
everybody
a
whose
big
social
deal.
security number I've ever touched in the last 5 years. That dramatically increases your profile. You've now alerted thousands, tens of thousands of people more than needed about your problem. And in the US, we especially have this thing called, class action lawsuits. I'm sure,
Oh,
we're seeing
yes, I
that
know all
overseas
about class
also, right?
action.
Yeah, it's huge. And now my class action went from 500 people to
Oh,
200,000 people.
this is
Right?
horrible.
And so being able to quantify the data breach through forensics is so critical these days with all these laws that are happening. And that is why when you get a data breach, when you have an incident, and you don't know if it's data breach or not,
Yeah.
but when you have an incident, you want to have the right people doing this so that you don't make these mistakes that a lot of people who aren't
Yeah.
experienced might
And
make.
I guess it's making sure that you've got somebody there that you can call on very quickly, because the faster that you get this dealt with, it just doesn't escalate, does it? Because they're not in the system for as long once you start to
That's right.
notice it. Yeah, it's about
That's
shutting
right.
it down as quickly as possible. Oh, I can see that. So, what do you think is going to come over the next couple of years? I mean, you've got the AI and people pretending to be other people now to get money. And I mean, what else are we going to get hit with?
I mean, look, it's more of it, right? It can continue to go, downstream when so to speak. When I say that, I mean like the smaller organizations are going to get hit more, right? Again, the AI is going to make it so that the less AI is going to make it so that it's easier for people to make these attacks, right? Which then means that you don't have to be super smart as a hacker to do this. The high school kids can make a quick buck these days, right? With some of these tools that are out there. So we're gonna see that. We're gonna see more laws, more litigation. Okay. In the U.S., we're very litigation happy, so there's been a lot of that, and a lot of my colleagues and partners that I work with, we're seeing in Europe and in the UK, a lot more of this litigation that's going on, and the insurance issues, the cybersecurity insurance, and working through that. So we're seeing a lot of that over there in the U.S. and Europe and the UK.
Yeah.
Um, it's gonna continue to get messier, right? There is there's there's no light on the horizon yet, unfortunately. Um, Now look, what is some of the light? Some of the light I see a little glimmer of light, which is that people are getting more serious about cyber,
Yeah.
and that we're starting to see more regulation around cyber. What I mean by that is uh, there's more laws coming in place forcing people to be proactive about cyber. And that's really what we need to do to solve this, right? To solve this is to get better about cyber, make our systems more secure. But the problem is people don't want to do it because they don't want to spend the money.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's money on, it's an insurance that you don't want to spend money on,
It's
isn't it?
it's 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 like insurance. Nobody likes paying for insurance, spending money for something that you hope you never have to use or need, right?
Yeah.
Again, people think cybersecurity is like that too. And unfortunately, that's a problem. But what we're seeing is we are starting to see more regulations and laws being passed. I say, look, if you're in certain industries, if you handle certain types of data, you need to do certain proactive cyber measures. We saw this in the U.S. Almost 20 years ago, or about 20 years ago, with this thing called HIPAA, right, which is the Insurance Portability Act. And I'm sure I misspelled that, or
That's all right. We'll never
enumerated
check
that,
up.
right?
I promise.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. but
We
but
trust
uh,
you.
but with HIPAA, there's just all the health insurance people, anybody, your doctors, anybody's having health records, they had to do certain things, and they've ratcheted that up over the course of the years, and it's gotten more and more. And look, I'm not saying the healthcare industry is good. There's still health issues in the healthcare industry, but it could have been a lot worse. And we're starting to see that now. In the U.S., we also have this thing called CMMC, Cybersecurity Maturity Model. Um, And that is for the U.S. Department of Defense vendor. So if you receive money from the Department of Defense as a contractor or a subcontractor, you're now going to be subject to newer regulations, and that's getting rolled out. And there's still some things going on with the political climate and things like that, but it's getting worked out. But it's going to happen, I think. And then what we're also seeing now is other industries are starting to adopt the CMMC framework. So CMMC again was designed for Department of Defense military, but now we're starting to see other agencies and other organizations say, "Oh yeah, we'll do the same thing," right? And take the
Yeah.
same standards and same framework. And so we're starting to see more and more regulation around cybersecurity, which is again, that's how we're going to get out of this thing.
Yeah, and you think that is the way forward, that's the right thing. So do you catch people? Do you actually catch them? Because I have this fear that they just keep going from one firm to the next and you just shut them down somewhere and they move on.
So sometimes I catch people, so to speak, but
Yeah.
a lot of times I don't, and it depends. There's different kinds of bad guys out there, right? So a lot of this ransomware and business email compromise and wire fraud that tends to be overseas. It tends to be these gangs that are overseas, and sometimes nation states, right? We see the North Koreans, we see the Iranians. We do see nation state actors also, and no. David Son at CohnReznick is going to go catch them. Sorry, that's not what I'm able to do. But sometimes we also see other types of threat actors, and it's really the insider threat. Bob in accounting, or Bob in
Yeah,
sales,
which
who
we've talked
who
about.
who
Yes.
might redirect some money, or who might steal some intellectual property. And yes, a lot of times I do catch them, and that's another piece that organizations need to think about, because
Yeah.
you know while we talk about ransomware, and that's in the news, and we talk about these foreign gangs, criminals, right? Uh, the insider threat, your employee who is disgruntled or just has a bad history or has gotten himself into some history, like maybe developed a gambling problem or alcohol problem and is in debt now. Those can be bad, and I've been doing that for a very long time, and I've seen organizations for years be impacted by that severely.
And we're going to do that as our next podcast as well, aren't
Yes,
we? So
yes.
I'm looking forward to hearing about that. It's a completely different angle on the same topic. So one final question, David. How do you sleep? Do you actually get time? I can't
My
imagine with all that going on. I'd never be able to switch
it's
off.
a little tough. I don't sleep as much as I'd like to, right? Between the amount of work we have to do and the phone calls I get in the middle of the night saying, "Hey, I've been hit with ransomware. Can you help?"
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
imagine.
it's pretty busy. But I guess I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, and I enjoy it, and I enjoy helping people, right? I mean, one of the great things about my job, the way I look at it, one of the great things about my job is I get to help CEOs and business owners through some of the worst times of their lives, right? And their professional lives. And then for many people who own a company, it's personal. It's very personal too.
Yeah,
It's part
it
of their
really
personal
is.
life.
Yes.
And so I get to help people, hold a hand and help walk them through that fire, and see them through it. And I get some personal fulfillment out of that.
That's great. Well, David, it's been fantastic talking to you. I've really enjoyed listening to you. Enjoyed, is that the word? I think I might need to go lie down in a darkened room now. The shock of everything that's going on. But it's been great to talk to you about this. Very helpful, actually, very interesting. And I look forward to the next podcast.
I
So
look forward to it. Thanks for having me.